Hi everyone and welcome to your horoscope for the week of February the 1st, 2021. This horoscope is brought to you by onemillionnights.com. We have a very active and powerful sky playing out all throughout the week, where a certain nuance of this energy is something that we're already used to. And here I'm talking about the Uranus conjunct Mars squares with Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarius. But fortunately, as Mars is distancing itself from Uranus, this energy actually becomes way more constructive, way more rational, way more balanced and tempered than it was until this present moment, for Mars agitated everything. Mars is the planet of action. Whenever it is conjunct any major power player in the sky, well, that energizes it. So its symbolism becomes almost urgent. It is a main theme that is going to affect all of our lives, both individually and collectively. And Mars-Uranus conjunction are one of the most intense, electric, spontaneous, very, very difficult to control energies out there in the zodiac. So not only has this caused a lot of chaos in our lives, regardless from which area or in which sense, but this chaos was also felt and experienced by us in the most intense way, leading to a sense of restlessness, agitation, anxiety, the imminent sense of urgency that we have to find solutions to all those problems right now, or we desire nothing more than stability, a time, an opportunity to just breathe and think things through. But naturally, none of this was available because things just kept twisting, turning, happening, just as a Russian roulette with the speed of lightning. So this aspect has caused a lot of unrest. So Mars distancing itself from Uranus is actually a good sign, because on its own, the Uranus-Saturn square and of course the Uranus and Jupiter squares are not as conflictual, are not as intense. And naturally, if you're just talking about the Uranus and Saturn square, so Uranus is the new. It is the new value system. It is whatever we have to achieve in the future. And Saturn is the old, the traditional custom rules, regulations, limitations. So basically this square is out with the old and in with the new. But it is not as simple as I make it out to be, because it also involves that there are many parts of the old which are really, really valuable, and we have to preserve those. We have to save those and give them a new format. This is what Saturn requires us to do. So it's not really opposing out with the old, but it's rather inviting us to do it with great diligence. While Uranus is very, very quick. It wants the new right now. It doesn't have patience. But this is where the symbolism of these two planets meet in tension, so they have to find a middle way. Both Saturn and Uranus in this case have to have their portion of the manifestation, and that takes a lot of time. And that is exactly why these squares are going to be active 3 times. The first time is definitely going to be very, very soon in February. 17th of February to be more precise. Then another square will perfect itself in the summer, 14th of June. And the final one takes place on the 24th of December 2021. So these are going to be major key moments when the theme is going to be out with the old and in with the new. But out of all of these 3 meetings in the sky, it is the February one, so 17th of February, which is the most important, the most urgent and intense. Because Mars has not left the sign of Taurus yet. And also another big reason is that everything that took place in 2020 is still part of our lives. So it is still in a very direct manner here. Let's say the virus, the rules, the limitations, the legislative part of the deal, which still affect our lives a lot. And of course, Saturn is also work. So all of the limitations which stop us from performing our activities, our duties, or getting in life where we need to be. And because all of these things are very fresh, because they just happened last year, how we feel about them, that we are so sick and tired of them, that is another part of the deal. But the energy itself is not that very new. So that's why this very first square in February is going to be the most intense. Chances are the same square in June and in December are going to be much more solution oriented, as in we will already have a crystal clear, a logical, rational solution which makes a lot of sense, and we're going to be working towards implementing them. And that is where, the opposition might be some people who are against those solutions, those ways of fixing things, solving things, the resolution. So it is going to be much more like a huge ideological battle of opinions, principles, even modus operandi. But now in February, of course, this is still part of the deal, but the opinions are going to clash in a very intense, aggressive, intolerant way. And at the same time, Uranus and all the Aquarian planets, they speak about liberty, equality, equity, and these are things which are very, very urgent. So of course people are focusing on these the most. And when people focus on these the most, in the sense that they do not have these in their lives and they're not experiencing equality and equity, humanitarianism, so of course they're willing to fight for these, they're willing to stand up for themselves. But as I said, this part of the energy is nothing new, we're already used to it. So the very beginning of the week might be a very pleasant surprise, because the moon holds trines with the Aquarian planets, and trines are celestial conversations of supreme harmony, they're blessings. Something might delight our souls, our feelings. Maybe we will have a lot of nice gestures, words, comments, anything really, from certain people in our lives, partners, associates. It can also be inspiration, where some people just inspire us. And at the same time, it can also be really intense new beginnings, where someone surprisingly just pops up in our life in order to help us, in order to give us a means to progress with our future hopes and dreams, wishes, desires. And of course, the moon is going to hold the trine with Jupiter as well, so it can be a really lucky energy. These trines start on the 1st and get more intense as they perfect themselves on the 2nd. But at the same time, we also have a very powerful energy shift. Actually two. One of them is Venus finally moving into the sign of Aquarius, so leaving Capricorn. And this puts a totally different kind of emphasis on the sign of Capricorn, because at that time we have Venus, Saturn, Jupiter, and of course Mercury in there. So that's a huge number of planets. The emphasis is definitely going to be placed on Aquarius. So our futures, our hopes, our dreams, our friends, our social circles, where it is that we belong to. It can also be the internet and communication. It can be our intellectual spheres. And as I said, it can also be the principles of equality, equity, justice, fairness, humanitarianism, compassion, etc. And of course, one of the biggest keywords is freedom. And with Venus in this part of the sky, well, it's not just our minds, it's not just our intellectual spheres, but this is where all of our emotions and values are also attuned to our hopes, dreams, our future, friends, connections, etc. So this gives this very, very strong and intense and almost dominant Aquarian energy even more strength. And of course, the other energy shift also takes place in the sign of Aquarius. We are just at the beginning of February, just as we enter the gate in this new month. Mercury has gone retrograde. So this is the beginning of this Mercury retrograde season, which ends on the 22nd of February. So first of all, let's say a couple of words about this Mercury retrograde period. Well, this Mercury retrograde isn't as bad or as full of blockages as a normal Mercury retrograde period can feel like, because on one hand, Mercury is very comfortable in the sign of Aquarius. The sign of Aquarius is very, very quick, just like Mercury. So even if there are blockages, errors, stagnations, things getting stuck, it's gonna last very, very little. And of course, there is gonna be this mental energy, this intellectual power to fix it. This is where, like, all of us are going to be having like a hair-splitting kind of attitude, which is very, very helpful in this case. Because if errors, blockages, miscommunication, misinterpretation, mistakes in documentation, official matters, etc., everything that has to do with Mercury retrograde occurs in our lives, well, we can fix it very, very quickly and very efficiently. Also, this energy is really, really good to revise contracts, to revise legally binding agreements where you are not just part of something or a group of people or a collective just by sheer will, as in silently, but if you also have some kind of contract or legally binding element, this is a really, really good time to revise that, to rethink that, maybe readapt it. And of course, if you reach the conclusion that it's no longer part of your life or it's no longer beneficial for you, termination, of course. Another expression which is really, really beneficial is that a Mercury retrograde, especially in the sign of Aquarius, is really, really good to start completing, especially intellectually, things which are left from the past, uncompleted, unfinished. For example, it can be projects, it can be some kind of paperwork, legal issues, sorting out your calculations, your financial plans and tactics for this year, getting advice with something that you truly need information or some kind of guidance with, and of course, making up your mind. If you are stuck with decisions in your life, you don't know what to do, you don't know what the best course of action is, this Mercury retrograde intellectualizes, rationalizes everything, giving you the opportunity to figure it out. But of course, there is a different side to this energy, the rather unfavorable, and that is pretty clear. Well, a Mercury retrograde, especially in the sign of Aquarius, is not very good to make new purchases with electronic equipment, because chances are they might malfunction. And of course, at the same time, it doesn't have to be any new purchase. This is where software, the internet, electricity, every device which runs on electricity, and Mercury, even cars and means of travel are gonna break down, are gonna stop responding, errors, bugs, cutouts, blockages. But these are basically part of almost every Mercury retrograde season. So I would really like to focus on the more positive expression because, as I said, Mercury is very comfortable here, so it can accomplish a lot of things. And in a rather easy manner, because it can be as quick as it wants to be. Only our mental and intellectual capacity is the limit to this energy. Now, another very important moment next week is going to be towards the end of the week, where Venus conjunct Saturn in the sign of Aquarius. Of course, this also means that both of these planets are going to be squaring Uranus, but because of the presence of Venus, this might not really be a bad energy at all, because Uranus can just mobilize things very, very quickly, and it can conjure up a lot of surprises, unexpected twists and turns of events, usually for the better, because Saturn also is the lord of karma, the harvest, the teacher who has to bestow a reward on all of its students who passed the exam and who worked very, very hard. So whenever Saturn meets Venus in the sky, one of its expressions can always be karmic harvest, reward, achieving something that you worked for very, very hard, getting something back which you sacrificed, present, honors, recognition, even earthly and divine justice, and naturally stability, material stability, because both Venus and Saturn are very earthly energies. And since this earthly, as in material kind of energy, is in an air sign, well, it's that much quicker, it is that much more adaptable and efficient. At the same time, it can also represent unexpected help, unexpected intervention from a highly influential person. It can also highlight all of your values, inner values, everything that makes you valuable professionally, for example, reputation, and everything basically that makes you also magnetic. And this magnetism, the reputation, or your value, your inner worth, but also, the manifestation of your inner worth, can conjure up a lot of unexpected blessings at this time. Because Venus is the planet of blessings, the lower benefic. So especially if you have been a very, very hard-working, honest, diligent, dignified person in the recent past, this aspect can actually shower you with blessings. Of course, the not so favorable expression of this energy, well, as I said, that Uranus can be surprises, and some surprises are of the unpleasant kind. For example, it can be a temptation, something that pops up in your life unexpectedly, and you might feel that it is a mistake, but you're still inclined to do it, experience it. Like one of the examples, it can be, for example, infidelity in a couple, where the temptation is another person. It can also be an investment, where you just really, really want to invest into something, which seems a really good idea in that present moment, but perhaps sometimes not following the Uranian impulses is the right course of action, because by not risking, well, you also prevent loss. So this aspect also requires you to think things through rationally, logically, and to analyze the potential scenarios and outcomes of whatever it is that you do. And we have kind of reached the end of this week. Since this is my very last horoscope, I'm going to continue with highlighting the major celestial events of February. So the following is not next week, it is an overall view of the whole of February. So what comes next, another important celestial event, is rather complex, because as I said, Venus conjunct Saturn on the 5th of February. So naturally, Venus, as she moves on, she is going to form the same conjunction with Jupiter in the sign of Aquarius. And this takes place on the 11th of February, a very important day when we also have a really, really powerful, almost magical, quantic new moon in Aquarius, of course. So by this time, at the time of this new moon, we are going to have Venus, Saturn, Jupiter, the Sun, and Moon in the same part of the sky. Oh, and of course Mercury. That's 6 planets. So the Aquarian energy is going to be at its full spike at this time. And also this new moon is going to form a conjunction with Mercury retrograde, and it is also going to be touching this Venus-Jupiter conjunction. So this can be a very, very, very lucky energy, because in its own, Venus and Jupiter together, the great and lower benefic, bestower of blessings, planet of good fortune, Venus money, Jupiter miracles and blessing. So whenever Jupiter and Venus meet in the sky once every year, well, it is one of the luckiest days of that year. One way or another, surprises, blessings, delight, favorable events do take place in our lives, both individually and collectively. Now, last year in 2020, this energy was not very, very strong. I mean the Venus and Jupiter conjunction, because Venus in the sign of Capricorn, she cannot actually embody her highest qualities, her unlimited magnetism, the desire, the passion, the pure love. She has to be very practical, very down to earth. You know, in Capricorn, Venus also has to have a rather rational side. And not to mention, Jupiter is debilitated in the sign of Capricorn. So last year's meeting of Jupiter and Venus wasn't as prosperous, as miraculous, as, you know, uplifting, optimistic as it usually is. But fortunately, this year is totally different, because Venus is very extravagant, very, very individualistic and self-loving in the sign of Aquarius, and that is not a bad thing at all. While Jupiter in the air sign of Aquarius, well, it can expand thoughts, ideas. It can actually touch that quantum layer of our intellect, our highest, our divine, most superior intelligence, which we most of the time simply cannot control. So what this means is that this can actually be a very, very lucky energy. And it's not just, you know, mystical. It's not just, you know, spiritual in the sense that faith and prayers and magical workings or spiritual workings. But it is also quantum, which means that it might not really need any form of faith other than belief in your own intelligence and in the superiority of your mind. And if you do, this is actually mind over matter. So this can bless your life in so very many ways. All you need to do is desire and think. But of course, if all of this wasn't enough, well, this takes place simultaneously next to this new moon, and every single new moon is a powerful new beginning. It is basically when our identity, the sun, the force of creation within us, meets the soul and the emotion, the moon. So of course they represent a period of maximum fertility, of course from a spiritual perspective, when our seeds of intentions are absorbed like a sponge by this new moon, the conjunction of the sun and moon, and that is what they're going to work with in the next 6 months of our lives. So if any new moon is a really good period for planting seeds of intention, of focusing on things that we want to attract in our lives or create, etc. well then this one is one of the most powerful ones, because as I said, it's not just spiritual, it's rather quantic, and quantic has no limits. In a quantum reality, absolutely anything is possible, and Aquarius is all about that. It is the future, it is the infinity of the intellect, of the mind, of ingenuity. So use this energy well, however you wish. Just plant seeds for your future, even the long distance future, because this can be quite miraculous. And of course, even the number 11 in numerology, it is one of the most mystical numbers. You know, 1 and 1. One of those ones is you, your sovereignty, your being, and the other one can be the universe where the two of you meet in intention, and something wonderful is created through the meeting of your human mind and the divine mind. And since Mercury retrograde is also part of the celestial conversation, well, what a good energy this is, not just for the future, but to find solutions to everything that is still pending in your life. And you know, Venus is the goddess of love, so this energy is also really good for new partnerships to form, for people to find each other, because Aquarius is also our friends and connections. Even if that partnership isn't romantic in nature, well, whoever might enter your life at this time may be someone who is going to be really, really valuable in your future. But of course, Venus can also be romance and love in the classical sense. And this is where Mercury retrograde is also really good, because if someone owes you a communication, someone owes you an explanation, someone owes you a form of self-expression, well, this energy can make it happen. And if that someone is someone, let's say, who admires you from the distance, they might just decide to communicate and tell you how they feel, and this many times can create new bonds, new partnerships, new relationships. Then another important moment is the 22nd of February, when Mercury stands still in the sky and goes direct. By that time, all of us should have new plans, or better said, maybe the word new is not the best to describe this energy. It is more like new in the sense that improved, perfected, completed, refined. So that is going to represent the energy when we're invited to actually start doing it, start accomplishing it, start executing our own plans, choices, decisions. Then on the 25th of February, Venus moves into the sign of Pisces, and this is also a really good energy because Venus is exalted in the sign of Pisces. This is where she becomes her most romantic, dreamy, spiritual, loving, unconditional self. This is where Venus has no bounds. And then a next important moment is the 27th of February, when we have the full moon, February's full moon, taking place in the sign of Virgo. And this is also a really positive energy, because the moon holds a trine with Uranus. And that means surprises, revelations, the deepest spiritual states experienced here in matter, because Virgo is matter, it is earth, it is mutable earth energy, so it is very down to earth, practical, physical, real, while the sun is in the sign of Pisces, ethereal, dreamy, the depths of our unconscious. So this can be a moment where our spiritual activities, our altered state of consciousness, etc., is at its peak. And with Uranus, well, that can represent miraculous surprises, in the sense that maybe we have the chance to witness and experience the ethereal everything that we might think at that time that is just something inside of us, a dream or a fantasy maybe, it can become quite real. And Virgo and both Pisces in their own unique way are also energies of sacrifice. So this can also be a pleasant surprise in a different way, where if we sacrifice something, regardless for who or what purpose, as long as it was, out of our own benevolence, out of our own compassion, empathy, mercy, etc., this can represent a moment of a powerful karmic harvest, where the universe just showers us with something really, really positive, something to make us feel as if we are rewarded for choosing to be compassionate at that moment in the past. Now, like always, when there is a lot of activity in the sign of Pisces and its opposite sign Virgo, that is always a period of detox, purification, closures, ending everything that is already stale, unnecessary in your life. It is a period of decluttering. It is a period when we are called to adapt a much healthier, better, more improved lifestyle, to quit addictions, to get our lives back on track, both, psychologically, Pisces, and also materially, Virgo. So this is basically healthy mind or soul in a healthy body. But what is even more important than that, even though what I'm about to say doesn't converse with this full moon, but it's still a full moon, so it is very important, Mars holds a trine, a supremely harmonious celestial dance with its higher octave, Pluto. And this energy is really, really fortunate, because whenever these two power players meet in this way in the sky, well, Mars is our willpower, what we want, our passion, our desire. Pluto is power, sometimes even the power of fate. So whenever these two planets meet in this way, we get what we want, we get what we ask for, we get what we worked for, we get what we try to attract in our lives. This is also the energy of persuasion, the energy of ambition, the energy where there cannot be any obstacle in front of us because we feel so very strong, ambition, motivated that we can overcome anything. And also this is quite a lucky aspect materially speaking, because both Mars and Pluto speak from earth signs. So one of the most positive and beneficial expressions of this energy is definitely a massive material breakthrough, or getting what you want, what you worked for, what you desire, materially as in real life. And the Virgo full moon simultaneously also is very helpful, because every full moon is a completion, and it can very well be karmic harvest, because it does take place in an earth sign. And also later on, the moon, as it goes further into Virgo, will hold the trine both with Uranus and Mars, and that is already a grand trine, a big blessing. So this can be quite a positive and profoundly healing full moon, both physically, psychologically, spiritually, and materially as well. So this energy has healing, breakthrough, regeneration, positive and uplifting transformations and changes written all over it. This might be that very energy which starts making everything better. Because as I said in all of my horoscopes, January is going to be total chaos, February is going to be full of tension and conflict, but March is when things will finally start to settle down, and chances are most of us, especially individually, are going to be most preoccupied with fixing our lives, creating some kind of security, stability, healing, regeneration, getting our lives back. This isn't where we want the same normality as we once had, but we want some kind of normality which makes sense, which is stable, and which is not going to be something totally else tomorrow because law changes, because the COVID situation gets out of hand, or because a politician has a bad day. This is where we are not just going to be desiring stability, but also willing to sacrifice everything it takes to keep it, to preserve it. Because I know that we have a very active Uranus, and that means out of the comfort zone, out of security, chaos, work with the unpredictable, adapt, go with the flow. Yes, absolutely, but we will have Uranus here until 2026. So we already get the major idea, but at the same time, we need some kind of stability and comfort, because comfort is not a bad thing, even though it means totally different things for different people, but we still need comfort to act. We need comfort to fully embody our inner strength and to take action. I'm not saying that sometimes the very best choices and actions in life are not made out of a situation of crisis, so exactly Uranus, when we have to leave our comfort zones or risk or etc. But neither can we live our lives every single day like that. So what I'm trying to say here is we do need some kind of normality, we need some kind of routine, we need something to ground us, and that is exactly what we're gonna try our hardest to do starting from March. It is not just an inner call, it is also an urgent necessity, so it's also very rational. And of course, as I said in my previous horoscopes, things are gonna get significantly better starting from May, when Jupiter finally dips into its ancient ruling sign of Pisces, a place in the sky where Jupiter can bring forward its most miraculous, its most mystical, dreamy and optimistic qualities. So that is a time of regeneration, of healing, of forgetting the pains of the past, and just really looking forward to the present and the future. And what's even more important, we are a generation, those of us who are alive here today, who can experience the energy of both Jupiter and Neptune being in their own ruling signs simultaneously. And even though there is no guarantee that this energy is going to turn into something physical, as in, let's say, money dropping from the sky and erasing all your material worries, but one way or another, it is going to be a major blessing, an energy of pure, supreme, divine bliss in all of our lives. That is going to be a moment of major spiritual upgrade. That can be a moment when the spiritual plane, the ethereal, so to speak, is going to be so very interwoven in our lives that we can actually do and manifest and work with it in the best of ways. It is not going to be just a theory, just a philosophy, something that we have to, think through and analyze in order to make sense and for us to believe it. It's gonna be more like deeply woven into the core of our beings and our instincts. So that is the energy of blessing and ease. That is like the divine walking in our skins, within us. It will feel like that the divine isn't just an obscure, unperceivable source of power or existence somewhere distant out there in another realm, but rather the divine is right here within us, right now and forever. So this period of Jupiter in its sign of in its ancient ruling sign of Pisces is definitely gonna be a really powerful healing energy. And when Jupiter entered into Capricorn, everyone kind of knew that Jupiter in Capricorn is financial crisis, it is chaos, it is good luck, cannot save the situation if that situation is already unstable and bad. So we knew that 2020 is not gonna be an easy year materially and financially. That part was pretty obvious and clear to every astrologer out there. And of course, we could see that playing out on the world stage and even in our lives in so very many different ways. Like, for example, just when the COVID situation started, think about the toilet paper and water shortages. Because Jupiter is also truth, it is inner truth. It is who you truly are on the inside, and it reflected with mastery almost just how greedy we human beings can be. Survival mentality is one of the strongest inner forces inside of us. So basically it kind of reflected the social inequality, because some people could very easily hoard the toilet paper and the other items because they had money, while the poorest people had no chance. So it was kind of a big wake-up call for all of us to see the darker face of Capricorn. Stability and security is one thing, but excess and greed is a totally other one. Because those people who hoarded a lot of items were not really protecting their physical well-being, their bodies, their survival. They were protecting their excess. They were protecting their rich and comfortable lifestyle. And that Jupiter highlighted that it's not okay. And let's just take a look at now when it entered Aquarius. What is the truth that it is showing us? Well, first of all, it is showing us that the internet is one of the biggest blessings that humankind could have achieved. It is basically the manifestation, literally, of our collective consciousness, the data bank of our species, which is not physical, material, not real in the sense that it's susceptible to an end, because information is eternal. So who we are, what we have accomplished all throughout our history is stored as information. And that is a big blessing. But of course, it also highlights that how very, very toxic, enslaving, manipulative, deceptive social media and all the psychological tactics, adverts, opinions can be. So sometimes social media and certain people on it, and even the TV and every form of human communication, as in where we share information, can be placed on the same list as, cigarettes, alcohol, drugs, and all the other addictions, and all the other things in our lives which actually dumb us down greatly and just twist and basically they corrupt, they poison our psyches, and we find ourselves to be total aliens and strangers even to the self. And the reason it has to highlight this is because Jupiter in Aquarius, well, it is also technological advancement, it is also quantum leap, it will expand everything regarding science, technology, so we are definitely going to be achieving things which maybe a couple of years ago were unimaginable. So this is where, at least technologically, digitally, scientifically, the future is here. But it is also our responsibility to make sure that those things will never work against us and our well-being. So that's why it has to highlight all the negative expression of Aquarius. And last but not least, as it's going to enter its ancient ruling sign of Pisces, well, that is the place of the sky where closures, massive resolutions, conclusions, the biggest inner truth of our earthly existence are, symbolically speaking, stored. So of course, whenever we process something, we go through something, whenever we reach understanding, forgiveness, sense of healthy self-worth and self-esteem, things will turn to the better in our lives, in every area of life. And that is why Jupiter's presence in Pisces is associated with healing, regeneration, completion, things suddenly taking a very good and optimistic and positive turn. Well, this concludes my very last horoscope. I do hope that you enjoyed it and you found it useful. I would like to thank each and every one of you for listening, for all your lovely, supportive, and heart-touching comments. I wish with all my heart that the universe, the stars themselves, bless you with great abundance, with happiness, and the most important thing is love for yourselves, love for who it is that you are, and love for your life story. And as a last suggestion, if you enjoyed my work, if you found wisdom and guidance in it, I can recommend another astrologer whose work is 10 million times better than mine in each and every way possible, and that is the beautiful and fabulous astrologer Nadia Shah. You can find her on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, so feel free to check out her work, because there is so much inspiration, love, and wisdom that she shares, just like I do, in all her videos and work. And she has also courses where you can learn astrology. And another astrologer who I would love to mention, she is simply the sweetest soul that I have ever came across in this life. Her name is Pam Gregory. Her knowledge of astrology, her experience with working with the cycles and the symbolism of the planets is something that actually blew my mind. So if you're looking for astrology, I also recommend her channel. So after these being said, I can only wish everyone a much, much happier and joyful and miraculous 2021. Stay strong, guys, and please, please remember the core, the very essence of all things. Reality is what you focus on. So please try your very, very hardest to detach yourself from all this global chaos, from all this insecurity and negativity and drama, and especially the passion of all of it. And simply choose yourself. Choose your life, choose your own story. Even if it sounds ridiculous of what I'm about to say, if you love yourself, if you shower yourself with love, if you support yourself, if you stand by your own side spiritually and psychologically, one way or another, no matter how impossible something seems, you can still accomplish it, you can still achieve it. One way or another, the universe is gonna find a way to support you. But the big condition, not to allow this external drama to frighten you, to take away your power, to take away your dignity. So choose love over fear. And I know that my own situation is not a very good example for what I just said. But you know, as they say, it's not over until the big boned lady sings. So I have no way of knowing where my journey will take me. Just because my career ends today That doesn't mean that the universe cannot find some other way or solution or whatever in maybe a year's time, a month's time, a week's time, so who knows? So my final thought is thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to be your guide and for being part of my own personal journey. I wish everyone nothing but happiness and abundance.